This week on the WriterCon podcast.
Enjoy writing. You know, I don't understand how many people pursue this career and find it just painful without any aspect of joy. But for me, I've hit walls where I stop enjoying it. I switch genres, or I figure out what I have to say that's enjoyable to me. So yeah, I mean, to me, that's where it comes easily. It's fun. I have the most success is because I'm finding joy in it, even if it's a tough subject.
Welcome to WriterCon, a gathering place for writers to share their knowledge about writing and the writing world. Your hosts are William Bernhardt, best-selling novelist and author of the Red Sneaker books on writing, and Rene Gutteridge, best-selling author of over 30 novels and screenplays.
Hey there, writers. Big shout out to all the friends I made last weekend at Between the Pages, a lovely conference Laura and I attended in Springfield. Very well organized, great group of people. And of course, I couldn't help but notice that when we were in Springfield, we were but an hour away from Branson, where we're hosting the WriterCon small group retreat next month, July 19th through 23rd, actually. Okay, Rene, I know you've attended a writing cruise because you talked about that on a previous podcast. Have you ever done anything like these, intensive small group retreats with more one-on-one and stuff?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've run them. I wish we had had these kinds of things back in the day when I was trying to get published. Maybe they were going on. I didn't know about them, but I sure would have attended them. But I have run them myself, and they are wonderful. If you ever get a chance to go to one, especially Bill Bernhardt's, go for it, because you will get a master class in one just a few days.
What she said. But
yeah.
The retreat is next month. But if you can't make that, of course, I'm going to talk about WriterCon, the big writers conference we host every September 1 through 4 this year. And Rene, you're also in charge of the private consultations and manuscript reviews, which are similar in that people get, complete one-on-one interaction, even though it's a big conference, right?
That's true. It's like mini intensive. And sometimes it's very intense, but it's awesome. And it's definitely worth coming for. You will get a lot of exposure to professionals that you wouldn't otherwise get. So I highly recommend. Those were the kinds of things that they had back in the day that got me to where I am now. Those were the connections and the networking and the little gems I got from the professionals that built my career.
Yeah. Well, it's the best of both worlds, really. I mean, WriterCon is because, of course, it's a big conference. If you're just comfortable, want to sit and listen to smart people talk about the writing business and craft and art, you can do that. Or if you want to interact with people and more, in more intimate. That sounds wrong, though. I was trying to come up with a different word in more personal ways, perhaps. Then you got that option too. Jesse, I know you've been to WriterCon. Have you ever been to Branson?
Oh, I've been to Branson.
Yeah.
Yes, we went. Some friends of mine and I went and stayed at like a lake house type thing, and then we did Silver Dollar City, the Titanic Museum, all that stuff. So
cool. Well, we dragged you to the cruise. I mean, maybe next year retreat in Branson.
Okay, listen, listen. Branson cracks me up. So it's
me too.
It's like it's like just the fact that it's like a very dry city that's not a dry city. The the riverboat things that are also very dry but not. It's just like it's
getting an idea what Jesse did when he was there.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of pre-gaming for things in Branson.
Pre-funking. Yeah.
But no, it's also just a really beautiful place. So I like it.
Table Rock for sure is gorgeous.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to seeing it at the retreat next month. All right. Our interview today is with Justice Barron. Her work has appeared in, Rolling Stone, NPR, and on stages all across the country. Her investigative stories have been picked up by national news outlets And she's pursued her longtime interest in justice by investigating and writing about the death of Freddie Gray while in Baltimore police custody. She has written a new book about it called They Killed Freddie Gray, The Anatomy of a Police Brutality Cover-Up, which will be released later this year. We'll talk to Justine after the news segment and a brief word from our friends at Draft to Digital.
Hi, this is Kevin Tomlinson with Draft to Digital. Ebooks are amazing, but there's just something about having your book in print. That's why we built D2D Print. We take care of you with free layout templates and formatting, and we can convert your ebook cover into a full wraparound print cover automatically. Come check out D2D Print and all the cool tools we've built for you. Find out more at drafttodigital.com.
Okay, I'm not sure I can really claim this as a news item because news implies new, and we were just talking about this week. But we've got an update on the story. You may recall, if you were with us last time, about the author who has now been charged with murdering her husband. This author is the author of a book for children designed to help them get over the grief of losing a parent. Which, how much further do I have to go before you start to see all the ironies here? I mean, there's so many you hardly even know. She was writing it with her sons to help them get over the loss of their father, who she's now accused of murdering by poisoning him with a spiked drink. She allegedly, we are now told, thanks to a court hearing 2 days ago as we're recording, that the prosecutors got their hands on her phone and were able to not only read text, but see what Google searches she had made on her phone, a lot of which...
Disappointed.
Yeah, well, I'll get to that in a second. Anyway, let me finish my sentence. So the whole point was whether or not to give bail to Corey Richens, who's been behind bars since she was arrested, and the prosecutors, urging the court not to do so, cited internet searches found on her phone that included, if someone is poisoned, what does it go down on the death certificate as? And can cops force you to do a lie detector test? And by the way, the spelling is atrocious. And this is an author. What is a lethal dose of fentanyl? And my favorite, the one that she clearly did not research long enough, how to permanently delete information from an iPhone. Jesse, what I remember most about the last time we talked about it was you saying she's an author. Has she never read a mystery novel?
Right.
Didn't she understand that somebody would do an autopsy?
I don't understand how anyone lives in America and doesn't know the sort of basic general steps a murder investigation takes, just from movies, TV shows, whatever. There's no way to avoid knowing the base standards for what happens when someone is murdered. We as Americans are obsessed with it. There's literal genres dedicated to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get this. And hopefully was my text to you about this story, why it's here, or did you already have it listed?
No.
Okay.
I got it from although Rene mentioned it later too, but
okay.
I first found out because of your text.
Okay, yeah. So Google knew exactly what I wanted to see about the story because I was just like, she did what now?
But I mean, whether you read or watch TV shows or what, how can you not know that even I think today, before they take fingerprints, they're going to try and get your cell phone because everybody lives on their phone, and they're going to see what you've been texting and emailing and searching for, and definite lack of preparedness if it turns out to do that she's done what she is alleged to have done. Rene, you're probably thinking, this is the plot of my next novel, right?
Well, I couldn't sell this novel. It's so ridiculous. And I mean, I would flip it on its head, right? We talk about, flipping the script or whatever. I would say, like, she was set up, because clearly who would do this? And
That's how it would work in a
the
mystery. You're right.
misspellings are, you can't, an author would never, I mean, as all
Right.
authors,
That would be
we
the Agatha.
always Google with correct spelling. Like, we can't
Right.
help ourselves. We go back and we correct it and we do it. And so it's just baffling. I mean, we will all be following this, because it's just very, very hard. Well, the whole crime is hard to understand in and of itself, besides the fact that she took out life insurance policies right before. I mean, my goodness, it's a mess from beginning to end. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure this is going to end up on Dateline.
How did she have time to write a book and get it published before all of these things came out, is my question.
I guess it was a while before they charged her. I don't know why it took so long.
I know sometimes there's backlogs for autopsies and whatnot, but wow. I mean, like, just the standard stuff that happens when someone dies, you think the cops will be like, well, this is weird.
Yeah. Right off the bat. Well, as soon as they got the Cox report, certainly.
I just want to know, I can just imagine her lawyers just face palming as they get her Google search, like, oh no.
Take this case. I mean, you would, everything from, she even asked her, I mean, this is all alleged. This is everything I've read, but she asked her friends, where do you get fentanyl? She took out a life insurance policy. She's Googling basically, where do you hide the body?
How to get away with murder.
Where
there was even a show called that. Just watch that, lady.
I mean, not that we're rooting for her by any means, but
now you're convincing me she must have been framed, Renee.
Well, that's how I would spin it, because I couldn't sell this novel. It's too ridiculous.
Too obvious.
Yeah. Even if she was framed, even the framing's too obvious. Like, it's just not, no parts of this are smart.
It's her working in reverse to make it look like a frame.
Yeah, like, man, this is the worst frame job I've ever seen.
This is so twisty.
Double reverse.
God, well, I guess that would be the good story if it's like someone just really bad at framing people, I guess.
Oh, that's great. I should explain to everyone that she was not released on bail. In fact, although this is my personal moment, her defense lawyer said she should be eligible for bail because there is, and I'm quoting, no substantial evidence to support the charges, end quote. So now I'm stepping out of my role as co-host and speaking as someone who's been to law school. Author, you need a new lawyer, because these guys don't know what's going on. Okay?
Yeah. Didn't she also, by the way, didn't she also Google search like luxury prisons?
She may get an insanity defense going, because
that would be a better play. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move on to an actual new news story. This one centers around, how many of you thought my next words were going to be Taylor Swift? And yet that's what it turned out. Probably only Jesse and Rene, right? This is true. My kids have said that I am probably the world's oldest Swiftie. So, of course, I immediately noticed this story because it involved not only books, but Taylor Swift. And also because it seems to me it answers an age-old question. Like, for decades at least, publishers have been trying to find the formula for producing a best-selling book. And I think now they finally have their answer, and the answer is Taylor Swift. So here's what happened. There's this untitled book that was being listed and available for pre-order, but it was listed only as 4C Untitled Flatiron Nonfiction Summer 2023. With a yet-to-be-announced author, and yet, phenomenally, this vague book started shooting up the sales charts in the United States after other Swifties pieced together clues and came to the conclusion that it might be a memoir by the 33-year-old singer, known for, to be fair, peppering her songs with, references to past relationships and other Easter eggs for the major fans. This book shot to number 2 on Amazon. That's like, of the whole Kindle store, number 2. It was number 1 on Barnes & Noble's pre-orders chart. You're probably wondering what some of these clues were. I'll give you a couple. The book, according to the listing, was 544 pages, which is a pretty thick memoir for a 30-year-old actor or singer, but whatever. But the point is that the numbers 544 add up to 13. And as every Swiftie knows, 13 is Taylor's favorite number. But there's more. The mystery book, which was described as being a, quote, biography or autobiography, and I'm like, well, which? They're not the same thing. And that would be helpful. Anyway, it was set to be released on July 9th, which of course is the same date mentioned in the lyrics of Taylor's song Last Kiss, which is going to be on her new album, which is set to release on July 7th, which is practically the same date. So you see, it was clear. It was clear enough to sell.
I so don't see, but keep going.
Well, it was enough to sell a whole lot of pre-orders.
Our viewers can't see from my screenshot, but the Taylor Swift book hashtag on TikTok has 8.5 million views.
Good heavens.
Smokes.
Good heavens.
Taylor Swift book on TikTok, right? Which only exists because of this. I mean, she hasn't written a book. Right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Like, she would, like, here's the thing. Like, she doesn't need to do the secret part. Like, the book would sell millions of copies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But and to be fair, you know, she does these kinds of gaming mystery things when she releases new albums or new songs too. So it's probably not completely impossible, but as it turned out, you probably know where this is going. It took several days, but eventually Variety broke the story and said that they could report, quote, for certain that this mystery author is not Taylor Swift.
Oh, plot twist.
Yeah, that doesn't narrow it down really much. But as it turned out, the book was actually about music, but not about her. It's actually going to be called Beyond the Story, 10-year record of BTS, which, as I know you know, is a South Korean boy band.
That's also interesting.
Yeah, so you're saying you'd buy that one? Is that
No,
what you're saying?
no, I'm not buying, but like it's another big music genre that is very popular amongst the same age group as Taylor Swift. So
and will probably sell, you know, a lot of copies on its own now that people know what the actual title is.
I thought you were going to say, like, Variety says the book was not authored by Taylor Swift, but was going to be about her, which would be more interesting.
Well, of course, that would, I mean, anybody could do that.
Yeah. And then we know it's a biography.
GPT could probably do that, given how much stuff is out there. So I'm thinking about listing my, I mean, I love codes and puzzles. I'm pretty sure I could come up with some readily solvable cryptogram or something to be the title of my next pre-order, which suggests that it's actually Lady Gaga's memoirs. I'm just working on how I get the code out there. I don't know and Jesse, you tell me, how then do I release it? How do you get an online rumor started?
Ooh, you gotta like make a fake Reddit account. Just start posting it in lots of different like literary subreddits about like, I wonder what this book is about. And eventually like somebody will follow up that question. And then you make a second fake Reddit account to comment on that first one. And then, you know, make some really cryptic TikTok videos.
That sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
All right, one last story. And this has to do with a major literary agency losing some of its credibility, at least according to some in the public eye. This is not really a fun story, but I think it's important that we cover stories like this because authors already have enough to worry about, and it's best to stay vigilant about who does and does not have your best interests at heart. I know when Rene and I are trying to figure out who to invite to WriterCon, for instance, it's important to us that we have real credible agents and publishers and people we would be happy to work with ourselves. This one will not be invited. In the past weeks, dozens of authors have reported that a major literary agency, New Leaf Literary, has dropped them from representation. Some of these authors were in the middle of contract negotiations with publishers and now are going to be left high and dry without an agent representing them. Some of them say they were notified that their agent was, in effect, firing them by an email at 10 p.m. on a Friday evening while they were in the midst of negotiations. Some reports are indicating this was a result of New Leaf letting one of its agents go, and rather than finding new representation for the agency's client, they just dropped all their clients altogether. I mean, that's a different incident, but another one that's been reported. New Leaf is claiming that the splits between agents and agency were amicable, but a lot of the clients involved have definitely disagreed. I mean, it's back and forth. And if you want the latest, there's a lot of information on a website we've mentioned before, which is called Writer Beware, which is using this case to call for more transparent protocols to be shared. You know, here's a clear agreement between agent and client about what's going to happen and what's legit to do and what is not. I don't know. Rene, like me, you've had agents. What bothers you the most about this?
Oh, goodness. Well, let me say, I've had a 20-year career and I've had one agent. I'm very, very
Really?
fortunate. Yes.
Oh,
Very, very fortunate to have found gold on the first try. But I certainly have heard lots of horror stories over the years on these types of things. And it's unfortunate, you know. It's sad for the authors, and it's sad that an agency would handle things like this. I mean, it's hard to understand since we don't really know what the original issue was and what was going
right.
on, but just to drop the clients, it sure leaves them in a terrible bind, and that's never a good look. So it's I feel like somebody made a bad decision somewhere along the way, but we don't know the background story yet. So it'd be
Well, I
good.
mean, it's never a good look, and it seems like really bad business too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, normally, agencies want to hang on to their clients even, past the point when they may be in their most productive period, because who knows? Maybe they'll do it again. Maybe they'll come up with something later.
Absolutely.
It's just like publishers not giving away the rights to publish books, even if they have no plans to use them. Why give away something that you've got under contract? I don't know.
It
It's
feels
not making
weird. It
sense.
feels like something extreme happened, but maybe not. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what else comes out about this. But I agree. Like it's bad business. It's a bad look. It's like there's nothing good that you can go, oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I feel bad for the authors.
Jesse, you got a take here?
I mean, yeah, it's just bad business. This story was bad enough. Like I heard about it in my own world, and like I'm not in the literary world, and I heard about this because, with all of like the possible mergers and whatnot, this is like another piece of evidence that like competition is good, because if you have more companies, less things like this will happen, where one company can just decide something and then a lot of people are out of either access or in this case agents. So
Right.
if we want to make a pun, I feel like this company should rebrand under a new name, New Leaf, perhaps.
Turned over a new leaf.
Yeah,
Or
try. Yeah,
Oh,
they should
that's
try
good.
again. Yeah. So
Nice.
that's my joke on that one.
Oh, man. Well, we're not going to top that. So, all right, cue up the music. Let's talk to Justine Barron. Joining us on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Okay, traditional first question. If you could offer writers one piece of advice, what would it be?
I have two in my head, but one is
I don't know, Rene. Can we do two?
yeah, we'll go for
Okay, two then.
Okay.
okay, because I couldn't decide which is better. So you have got to enjoy writing. You know, I don't understand how many people pursue this career and find it just painful without any aspect of joy. But for me, I've hit walls where I stop enjoying it. I switch genres, or I figure out what I have to say that's enjoyable to me. So yeah, I mean, to me, that's where it comes easily. It's fun. I have the most success is because I'm finding joy in it, even if it's a tough subject. And then the other thing is, and this is when I used to teach writing, you know, there was a book, I don't remember right now the author, but it was What I Really Want to Say Is. And so I would have college students like free write. And then after it was done, start over with what I really want to say is, because I think that can help you nail down what it is that you're trying to say, you know?
Oh, that's awesome. That's great advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's well, thank you for sharing both great. So okay, so your first book, well, this is your first book actually,
Yeah.
right? And it's getting really rave reviews from prestigious sources like Publishers Weekly. And in case anybody doesn't know this, it's really hard to get Publishers Weekly to review a book, and to get in there is
And then half the time you wish they hadn't, but
yeah,
anyway.
well, they can be a little hardcore, but even getting in there is nice. So you're getting rave reviews. First of all, we got to ask, how does it feel?
Well, I don't feel good, and I won't, because I don't know how to constitutionally enjoy any level of success. But part of it is because this subject matter is, I'm taking on a famous case, the death of Freddie Gray in Baltimore. I am changing the narrative that everyone has heard radically.
Yeah.
And I won't be satisfied with a few people liking it, no matter how great of a person, how much I respect that person, until I feel like the narrative is changed in the public sphere. And I might lose at that battle. You know, I need help. I need publicity. I need mainstream newspapers to cover it. And I don't know if they will, because I've been at this case for a while and struggled. So certainly felt good every time I saw somebody say something nice about it in the moment. But then I just feel like, okay, how do I get everyone to know what happened? You know?
Right. The marketing part is the hardest for many writers, I think.
It's hard. Yeah. And it's you. I mean, you and I have this in common, Justine. We've talked about true story before. There's another level that you want to hit that goes beyond something like fiction. And that, that's the thing, is you just want to change something, you want to do something. You need people to hear this thing, right? And so I love that your heart is so deeply rooted into this. So why don't you tell us about the book and the story, and then how you got started with it?
Sure. So this started a really long time ago. It was in 2017, and I was just sort of blogging about true crime for fun. And I got somebody that was working on the Undisclosed podcast, which is an Innocence Project kind of podcast. Saw my writing and invited me and a journalist, Amelia McDonald Perry, to investigate this case of Freddie Gray. And that was in 2017, and we did a podcast about it. And we didn't have most of the evidence I have now, but we saw through what we were being told. And Amelia, to her big credit, was like hitting the streets and talking to witnesses. So we had a hunch about what really happened, and we saw holes in the narrative. So we told that story. And I still felt like, because I think partly because we were two women tackling crime, because Baltimore media was so kind of enmeshed in police and gatekeeping. They weren't paying attention properly to the information we were sharing. We were kind of excluded and marginalized. And so I just felt like I wasn't done getting the word out, you know? So I took a break from it for a couple of years, and then I started to like pitch maybe a documentary. And in the process of that, somebody, a source, gave me just a gold mine of evidence. And
Nice.
that's where I was like, wow, I have everything now, almost everything. I have everything that was known to powerful people that they buried. And the story about Freddie Gray's death, a lot of people might have forgotten that it was a big mystery at the time, because some officials told us that he died during the van ride, and it was called a rough ride. and that the van knocked him forward that while it was driving, he was thrown forward. But there were trials and nobody was convicted on that theory, and there was no proof for it. There was also a viral video of him being loaded into the van, and he was screaming and his legs were dragging. So a lot of people in the community thought, well, he must have been killed before that because he's screaming and later he has a broken neck. It must be that. And what we encountered was a different story, that at one of the stops along the van ride, he was killed. And, I don't want to give everything away because it is a social justice book, and there is a lot of not commentary so much as exploration of these problems in policing and police investigation, but it's also a true crime narrative, with mystery that unfolds. And, I definitely don't want to spoil everything.
Sure.
So that's the story, and that's really part of what I talk about in the introduction to the book. And that part of my mission is like, we need to take that true crime lens that we have on for these like milk carton cases and these innocence cases and apply it to these police brutality cases.
Sure.
Does that make sense? Too much? Too little?
No, that is
fine.
fascinating. Yes.
How did you get started with this incredibly? Maybe we should give some background. Give everyone the background on the Freddie Gray case, okay?
Well, yeah, the Freddie Gray case was it was 2015 April in Baltimore, and there had been the year before some prominent cases that were either caught on video or caused major rioting, including in Ferguson, Missouri, there had been riots. There was Eric Garner in New York. He was choked to death. So it was already in the consciousness, and it was boiling up in Baltimore, police brutality issues. And there were cases that are not well known outside of Baltimore happening there, where people died in police custody and the cases were swept under the rug. So when Freddie Gray's death happened, between the viral video, the growing movement, it was just an explosion. And the whole world showed up in Baltimore to gather information and try to figure out what happened. But there was so much lying from the police department. And, one of the chapters in my book is kind of about how the media, unfortunately, really didn't do its job to stay on the ground, keep talking to witnesses, try to piece together what happened. And they sort of bought into this really kind of extraordinary propaganda campaign by the police and other officials, including the prosecutors, that people thought were heroes. So after he was arrested, and it was very dramatic. He had a broken neck. He died a week later. And then Marilyn Mosby was this young Black female prosecutor. She was new, and she tried 6 of the officers. And she was seen to be a hero for a minute because she was filing these really major charges: assault, murder, manslaughter. But her case didn't really, her case was sort of a dud in court, and the public sort of got the sense, a lot of the public, not everyone, but some parts of the Baltimore public realized that maybe this trial wasn't serious, And so my book kind of uncovers what was really happening behind the scenes. Why didn't these trials work? What case did they put on? What case did they not put on that they should have?
You must have done a ton of research for this, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, when you're passionate about a subject, it doesn't feel like research, It's just, and then, because after we initially investigated it for undisclosed, I stayed on Baltimore crime issues because, I don't know, someone described it as my crack cocaine. I became like obsessed with Baltimore corruption because Baltimore is famously like a very corrupt place. And so I kept investigating policing. I talked to police officers and civilians and everyone and lawyers and everyone in between to try to really understand these systems. And so by the time I wrote the book, I had just so much to say, and investigating was just, it didn't, like I said, it didn't feel like research or work, and I know about research because I've had to do it as, I was a grant writer for work, and I've done academic research, and it's completely different when you're just so obsessed, Yeah, it doesn't feel like that at all.
So the difference between, of course, writing a story of fiction is you're dealing with real people. Some have passed, some are still with us.
Right.
What's it like to work your way through the stress of that, of knowing there could be lawsuits or these people are still alive and they're, you know what I mean? Like that's a whole nother level that you as a writer are dealing with true story, not only true story, but corruption and such. So how did you deal with that stress?
Right. And my background before I got into journalism, that's like my third writing career. I was doing like The Moth. I was telling stories on stage. And I had also written like fictional scripts based on my life. So I was usually like, you tell a moth story, it's true, but you're also heightening certain things, and you really can't with this kind of subject matter. So I did have one legal threat so far and one semi-threat, so I anticipate there could be more. Where I got really, really lucky was that I just had so many mounds of evidence. I had so many videotaped interviews, so much footage and interviews and documents from the police file that it really kind of told itself, and we got lawyers involved, and I did round after round of fact checking. And honestly, every round of it, even 7 months into fact checking, I would find something. I'd feel like a total idiot, and like having to, every sentence has multiple like things that need to be fact checked. It's an added concern for me because, I know Baltimore Sun writers who have done books, nonfiction books, and they get away with mistakes. And I won't get away with mistakes because I was an independent journalist. I'm a woman. My reputation is for going after powerful people. So I'm not going to get away with mistakes. And I do have that anxiety that someone's going to see something and discredit all of the work because it's very hard to catch everything. And most of us can't afford like very expensive, I paid for fact checkers for parts here and there, right? And for different rounds of it. But like the best fact checkers to do the whole book would have wiped out my savings. So yeah, I have that stress and that concern often.
But tell me that at least your publisher did take out a nice insurance policy, right? Because that's the key thing. You're indemnified.
Yeah. I'm not overly worried because again, it's all really just based on things they said and did in court.
Yeah, unfortunately, truth is a defense, but it doesn't stop people from suing sometimes. That's why I'm saying.
I mean, the woman who threatened to sue, I was like, wow. On the one hand, goodness gracious, I don't want to have to pay for lawyers. And she went away, after our lawyers responded. But on the other hand, I mean, why? She doesn't want to draw attention to this, So I feel kind of protected by that. I feel like bring on the attention.
Good for you.
Because it's only going to hurt them and help me. So, and I think they know that, which is why I don't think I'm going to get sued.
Good.
They just threaten stuff. You know how these people are.
Yeah, lawyers are the worst.
It's not like it's Trump. I mean, it's these like small time leaders. Most of them are out of office,
Yes. Your bio says you also provide consulting services for political and nonprofit groups. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, short version is that like mostly I was just a grant writer, a nonprofit grant writer for most of my career.
Hard
so
work.
that was my money. Yeah, that was my money job for most of my career, and so sometimes I would get hired to do other kinds of writing through like there would be like a firm that would assign me to different jobs. Usually it'd be a grant proposal. Sometimes it would be another kind of proposal or a speech or something else,
So, okay. And so you were talking about writing newspaper articles, and you've done a lot of writing, Justine. We need about an hour and a half to cover all this. Justine and I know each other from a fierce female screenwriting group. So she does a lot, but for this book in particular, did you have to change the way that you work? A book 90,000 words or 80 or 60 or whatever, wherever you landed is much different than the article. So did it change the way that you work as a writer?
Honestly, it felt like what I was always meant to do, because with articles, there was never enough space.
Right.
With like the moth storytelling, there was never enough space. I mean, screenplays are a discipline. You know, the screenplays led to the book because I had a manager through that. And I've done a little screenwriting, but screenwriting is like this very tight puzzle, you know? And so you do have page limits and worries about scene length. So just to be able to just like no fence in sight, write the whole story, and each chapter just kind of worked itself out. It just felt more right, not challenging. Like the challenge was loosened. But I'm like someone used the word once for someone, a maximalist, like more. I'm much more. I'm not somebody who struggles to find enough words. I have to edit, you know?
Yeah.
So having the whole space of the book, and even when I was stressing about word length and stressing, my editor said, "Oh, you still need more here and more here and more here." And it was such a relief. I was like, wow, we can just write everything, can't we? Do you know what?
I do. I've tried to write short form things, and it's terrible. It's terrible. I don't enjoy it. So
it's a unique challenge. When I used to do the moth, because I used to compete in the moth, this is again before journalism. I used to compete in the moth all the time, and you have like 5 minutes and maybe 6, you know? And like that is such a discipline. It's very hard to say so much beginning, middle, and end in that little time. Right. You know, I'm glad I learned how to do that, but please, like, give me more words, you know?
Well, I can tell you, it always makes you a better writer to be able to write tight. And then when you earn the 60,000 words or whatever, then every piece of it is fierce and good and wonderful. So, well, okay. So can we ask, what are you working on next? I'm so intrigued.
Yeah. So I am split right now. So one thing I'm thinking about doing is the teleplay or the screenplay of this story. And I wasn't going to, you know, it always felt very sacred to me. And the fiction and nonfiction felt like a big line to me. Like, you don't cross that and you don't mess around with this story. But, you know, some people are producing a documentary, and I am thinking that maybe I could tell the truth better in fiction. And there are some examples, the Central Park 5, you know, they've done a good job here and there with, and Oscar Grant, the story of the, I forget the name of the film, but they did a scripted version of his police killing. And, you know, the book is cinematic. So I think I might go there with that, you know, and write the scripted version. Almost like, honestly, to me, it's an American crime story. You know, they did American Crime Story, Bill Clinton. They did OJ. I feel like American Crime Story, Freddie Gray. I feel like it is that because it exists in what happened in the neighborhood, what's happening in the police department, what's happening in the mayor's office, you know? It's that kind of story.
Well,
what's happening.
Like it, yeah.
Yeah, I hope that happens because I would like to watch it. But
me too.
I'll be reading this book when it comes out in August too.
Yes.
Justine, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun. I love talking about writing. I think it's so cool you do this. And I look forward to catching up on your episodes.
Well, thank you.
Right, thank you.
We'll do it again soon. Bye-bye. Just a few parting words. I mentioned before the WriterCon retreat in Branson, Stone Castle, July 19th through 23rd. It's a chance to work with a smaller group of people so that those of us who are teaching can actually read your manuscripts and comment and give you feedback and advice one-on-one. But you'll also be getting feedback from other people in the group, and you know, we'll be talking about various topics relating to writing or publishing and marketing. And to me, the best part of it is that I see people in these retreats leave and become their own critique group, or beta readers for one another. Thanks to the magic of the internet, they can stay in touch, and I just really like that. It's part of why I always say WriterCon is a family. And of course, we got the big conference coming in September too, Labor Day weekend, and I hope you'll give that a look too. And the website for both of these is writercon.com. All right. Until next time, keep writing, and remember, you cannot fail if you refuse to quit. See you next time.